The oak trees lining Forsyth Park swayed gently in the late afternoon breeze, their Spanish moss drifting like lace in the Georgia heat. White folding chairs stretched in perfect rows beneath a canopy of magnolia branches, each one tied with blush ribbons that fluttered softly. The air smelled like jasmine, sugar, and fresh champagne. Emily Harper stood just behind the double doors of the historic carriage house, her heart hammering against her ribs. 32 years old. Marketing executive. Perfectionist. Survivor. And today, she was a bride. Her ivory gown hugged her frame with elegance rather than extravagance, lace sleeves resting delicately against her skin. Her mother dabbed at her eyes, mascara smudging. "You look beautiful," she whispered. "Your father would have loved this." Emily smiled softly. Her father had passed 5 years earlier, but she still felt him with her, especially today. Outside, guests laughed and chatted. Savannah's elite had come out in full force, business leaders, politicians, socialites. Everyone loved a Southern wedding, especially one with money behind it. And Blake had money. Or so she thought. Her phone buzzed. "Blake, can't wait to see you walk down the aisle, baby." She smiled, but something in her stomach tightened. It had been doing that a lot lately. Blake Turner had swept into her life 2 years earlier with the confidence of a man who knew how to charm rooms and close deals. He worked in investments, traveled often, and always seemed to know the right people. He was handsome in an effortless way, dark hair, easy grin, a voice that made people listen. He also hated when she asked too many questions. "Trust me," he'd say, brushing her concerns aside. "I've got everything under control." At first, she believed him. She ignored the late nights. The unexplained cash withdrawals. The hushed phone calls he took on balconies. Love had a way of softening logic. The music began. Emily took a breath and stepped forward. Blake stood at the altar, smiling wide, eyes glinting with something she couldn't quite read. Pride? Nerves? Or something else? As she walked toward him, she noticed his hand twitch. He adjusted his cufflink. Then, just for a second, his smile flickered. She brushed it off. They exchanged vows beneath the sun-dappled trees. Applause erupted. Champagne corks popped. They were married. By the time the reception rolled around, the air had turned golden with evening light. Crystal chandeliers glowed above the dance floor. Laughter echoed between toasts. Emily laughed too, until she saw him. Blake stood near the dessert table, his back half turned, holding 2 plates of cake. She watched as he glanced over his shoulder. Then she saw it. A tiny silver packet slipped from his jacket pocket. He tore it open with practiced ease. And sprinkled a fine white powder over one of the slices. Her heart stopped. Time slowed. Her pulse roared in her ears. He looked around again, then calmly set the plate down. Emily didn't breathe. Didn't blink. Didn't scream. She smiled. "And walk toward him, baby," she said sweetly, looping her arm through his. "You're getting cake already?" He chuckled. "I couldn't wait." She leaned in, kissed his cheek, and casually reached for the plate. "Oh, but that one's mine," she said lightly. "You know I wanted the strawberry layer." He hesitated. "Just a beat." Then he laughed. "Right. Of course." They switched plates. Her heart pounded so loud she thought he could hear it. She raised her fork. So did he. Guests gathered around, phones out, capturing the perfect moment. "Cheers to us," Blake said, lifting his fork. Emily smiled back. "To us." He took a big bite. It started with a cough. Then another. Blake's smile faltered. His face went pale. He clutched his throat. Someone laughed nervously, then stopped. "Blake?" Emily said softly. He dropped the fork. Then he dropped to his knees. Panic erupted. Someone screamed. Someone yelled for a doctor. Blake convulsed, foam gathering at his lips. Emily stepped back, her face frozen in shock. Inside, her heart was racing, but her mind was sharp. Because now she knew. And everyone else was about to find out. The wedding hall erupted into chaos. Waiters scrambled, champagne flutes toppled, and guests screamed. Emily's mind, however, was eerily calm. Every detail she had noticed, the flick of Blake's wrist, the tiny packet he'd held, suddenly made sense. Paramedics arrived within minutes, weaving through the panicked crowd. Blake was lifted onto a stretcher, his arms flailing, lips turning blue. Emily followed, alert and composed, giving the medics the key information: he's ingested something toxic. Possibly cyanide or a powdered stimulant. Keep him stable. The police arrived, quickly assessing the situation. Officers began cordoning off the reception area and taking statements from witnesses. Emily answered their questions without hesitation, describing exactly what she had seen. She stayed quiet about her switch, her secret weapon, but didn't miss a single word from the officers that Blake's collapse was headline-worthy. By the time they reached the medics were working in tandem with the toxicology team. Emily stood in the waiting area, phone in hand, her stomach twisted with both fear and anticipation. When the doctor finally emerged, his face was grim. He's stable, he said, but the initial tox screen confirms high levels of a rare alkaloid, something commonly used to induce cardiac arrest in small doses. Whoever did this had intent. Emily nodded, hiding the calm smile tugging at her lips. She had switched the plates. Blake was alive, but the evidence was already stacking against him. Detective Harris, a seasoned investigator from the Savannah PD, pulled Emily aside. Ms. Harper, we need access to all relevant financial and personal records. We suspect foul play, and given your husband's sudden collapse coinciding with a $1 million life insurance policy, this could escalate fast. Emily nodded. I've already started compiling everything. You'll see he's not just reckless, he's desperate. She spent the night reviewing emails, bank statements, and insurance documents. Her stomach churned as she uncovered the truth. Blake had been drowning in gambling debts for years, hiding them behind fabricated investment reports. The life insurance policy, taken out months earlier, was clearly intended to benefit him upon her death. And the icing on the cake? His college sweetheart, Melissa, had been in contact the entire time, coordinating with Blake. The motive was clear: he wanted to kill Emily, collect the money, and run away with Melissa. Emily called her most trusted friends and colleagues, assembling a small team to help gather evidence. Among them were Jared Reynolds, a tech-savvy former IRS investigator, capable of tracing offshore accounts and encrypted communications. Maya Linton, Emily's close friend and a corporate attorney, ready to provide immediate legal counsel. Together, they traced Blake's debts and his transfers to shell accounts. Emails revealed careful coordination with Melissa, discussing timing, alibis, and ways to blame Emily's supposed stress for the poisoning. Emily's rage simmered, but her mind remained cold. Every detail she uncovered tightened the noose around Blake. By the following morning, Savannah's social circles were abuzz. Rumors of Blake's collapse, combined with the emergency response, were making rounds online. Social media speculated accidental poisoning, allergies, or even prank gone wrong. Emily stayed composed in public, attending the hospital, making polite statements to the press. But behind closed doors, she was planning her next move, a complete exposure of Blake's schemes before he could manipulate the narrative. She understood the stakes. Blake had wealth, charm, and legal resources, but she had truth, evidence, and the advantage of surprise. Within 48 hours, Blake was conscious but incoherent, still under heavy medical supervision. Emily approached him cautiously, feigning concern. I hope you understand how serious this is, she said softly. If anything happens to me, the police are involved, the evidence is here, and your plan is over. He looked at her blankly, as though seeing her for the first time. Emily's team recorded every interaction discreetly. Blake's own admissions, pieced together with emails and bank transfers, would soon form an airtight case. Emily knew Blake's next move: he would try to manipulate his network, perhaps flee, or attempt to use charm to win back trust. She had to strike first, and publicly. The annual Hamptons corporate retreat for their company provided the perfect stage. High-profile investors, board members, and even press would be present, making it the ideal moment to expose Blake's crimes beyond dispute. With Jared and Maya by her side, Emily prepared her strategy: screen emails, present evidence of financial fraud, show the life insurance policy, and confirm Blake's motive and intent to commit murder. The chessboard was set. Every piece, meticulously arranged. And Blake, for all his bravado, had no idea the game had already been lost. The Hamptons estate gleamed under the late summer sun. White tents stretched across the lawn, glistening tables lined with crystal glassware, and the distant ocean sparkled as if approving the events to come. It was the annual corporate retreat of Blake and Emily's company, a gathering of investors, board members, and media. For Blake, it was always a stage to shine. For Emily, it was the perfect arena to reveal the truth. Emily arrived in a simple navy dress, understated yet elegant, carrying only a leather portfolio. Behind her walked Jared Reynolds and Maya Linton, her trusted allies. Inside the portfolio were bank statements, email threads, photos, and recordings, all meticulously organized. Blake spotted her immediately. His confident smile faltered for the first time in years. "Emily," he said, trying to mask panic, "what are you doing here?" She smiled faintly. "You'll see soon enough." Guests began to notice the tension between the two, whispers spreading like wildfire. As Blake prepared to deliver a speech about growth and trust, Emily stepped forward, microphone in hand. "Excuse me," she said firmly, "I have an important announcement to make." The crowd fell silent. Cameras clicked. She displayed the first screen behind the podium, emails between Blake and Melissa discussing the poisoning plan. The room gasped. Next, she showed the life insurance policy Blake had taken out in secret, $1 million, explicitly naming him as the beneficiary upon her death. The final slide revealed his gambling debts and offshore accounts. Every dollar, every transfer, every lie laid bare. Blake stammered, his face ashen. "This is impossible," he muttered. Emily's voice remained calm, unwavering. "It's very real. And every move you made to harm me is documented. The police have been notified, your accounts frozen, and your assets are being audited. Justice will be served." Federal agents, waiting discreetly off-site, stepped forward. They approached Blake, handcuffing him in front of everyone. The cameras captured the moment, broadcasting it to the press, social media, and investors alike. Blake attempted to argue, to charm, to deny, but every piece of evidence had been presented in full public view. His plan, built on greed and deceit, had collapsed instantly. Melissa was also arrested after attempting to flee, and her connections to the offshore accounts sealed her complicity. Blake's trial was swift. The prosecutors had a mountain of evidence: emails, bank transfers, recorded confessions, and eyewitness testimony. Emily testified, recounting the day of the wedding, the moment she discovered the powder, and the chilling details of his financial schemes. The jury deliberated for just 2 hours before returning guilty on all counts. Blake received 30 years in federal prison, ensuring that no harm would come to Emily or her family again. With Blake behind bars, Emily reclaimed her life. She was hailed as a hero in Savannah, a symbol of intelligence, bravery, and resilience. Local media celebrated her courage, and investors rallied behind her leadership. She transformed her career and reputation into a platform for advocacy, financial literacy programs, workshops for women in corporate leadership, and charitable initiatives for victims of fraud and domestic betrayal. Emily moved into a renovated historic home overlooking the Savannah River, finding peace in her community, her career, and her own independence. She had survived deceit, greed, and attempted murder. And now, for the first time in years, she truly lived for herself.